Now that you have some background knowledge about ASDs and ABA interventions, we're going to spend some time talking about what your role will be as an ABA paraprofessional working in a school or other educational setting. Of course, exactly how your role is defined will depend mostly on the particular job that you have or the job that you're going to take. But there are still many common elements to being an ABA paraprofessional that cut across virtually any agency. We'll also review some other activities you might be engaged in on your job. And, very importantly, we'll be talking about professional and ethical behavior when working with children who have disabilities. Well, let's start with your role as an ABA paraprofessional. Now, it's been mentioned several times so far that you'll be playing an important role in teaching skills to children with autism. Well, what is it you'll be doing? How do you fit in with the larger team of professionals in your work setting? One way to answer that is to examine, in broad strokes to start, some of the roles of those who provide services to children with autism. Let's take a look at the case of one child with autism. Now, as we mentioned earlier, an IEP meeting is held for each child who is eligible for special education services. This meeting includes all the professionals involved with that child, like the child's teacher, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a behavior specialist, and perhaps a speech therapist. This meeting also includes that child's parents. The outcome of the meeting is a list of specific therapeutic and educational goals for that child, along with a plan for how to accomplish those goals and which professionals will be responsible. Let's say we're working with a 6-year-old child who has autism. One goal of many might be to increase the child's manual dexterity. Well, this would be an occupational therapy goal. Another goal might be for that child to learn basic skills of imitation, a skill that's very important for learning lots of other things. This would be a behavioral goal. Well, let's take a closer look at what's needed to meet the behavioral goal. First, a very specific behavioral teaching program or plan needs to be designed and written. This plan specifies in much detail everything that must occur each time someone works with this child on imitation skills. Once the plan has been written, someone must carry out the procedures in the plan, and that includes working one-on-one with the child, collecting data during the teaching sessions, graphing the data, and sharing the teaching results. The behavior specialist is responsible for designing the teaching plan in consultation with the teacher or other relevant specialists. The behavior specialist is someone specially trained in ABA-based teaching and has most likely been certified as a BCBA or Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Now, of course, you won't be working in isolation or having to make critical decisions on the fly. Instead, you'll be in close contact with the developer of the plan, who will teach you how the plan is to be carried out and make modifications to it, depending on the results that you provide. Your job is to carry out the particulars of the plan, just as it has been designed. Depending on the particular school or agency you work at, there will be other responsibilities you'll have as a paraprofessional. To help illustrate those responsibilities, let's take a look at an example of a typical day. When you first arrive at work, you'll be meeting with the teachers. You'll likely help prepare the classroom for the day, including making materials to be used in teaching programs. And you'll review the plans for the day and the schedule. Once school begins, you'll likely help with transitioning students, such as helping them off the bus and getting them to their classroom. And you may also help lead morning circle time. Afterwards, you may work one-on-one with a particular student on his or her instructional program, during which time you'll be collecting data. Mid-morning may involve help with group instruction, more student transition, or arts and crafts. In the afternoon, you'll likely help supervise groups of students, perhaps at recess. You'll provide other classroom support as needed by the teacher, help out with lunch routines, and you may conduct additional one-on-one teaching sessions. You might also assist with physical education activities. Finally, the end of the day brings more transitions, like help getting coats on and getting kids onto the bus. You'll also help organize or reorganize classroom materials and help clean up. Importantly, you'll be helping to log all the day's activities for record-keeping purposes, as well as check in with your teacher or supervisor. You may also present the day's results of the one-on-one teaching programs you implemented. Well, that's just a sample. And as I said earlier, exactly what you do will depend on the job you're in. Now, I hope this has been helpful in clarifying your role at the school or agency you'll be working at. Next, we're going to discuss a critically important topic, professional ethics that you need to maintain as part of the team of professionals that provide services to those with developmental disabilities, including autism. All right, I need you to pay particularly close attention. This section is a very important part of this training course. We need to talk about what it means to be an ethical professional. When you work day in and day out as a mentor, an educator, and a help giver, you must not only be well trained in the skills of your job, but also in the basic principles of professional conduct, which we call ethical practice. So let's talk about this. What is ethical practice? Well, first of all, you can think of professional ethical behavior in this way. The manner in which you carry out your duties is as important as the duties themselves. Do you treat your students and your colleagues in a way that's respectful? Can you manage personal feelings so they don't get in the way of your professional work? Are you a role model for your students and colleagues? Well, you'll be spending a significant amount of time with young students. And of course, many of these students have special needs, and they may also experience significant stress and challenges on a daily basis. Well, these children will look to you as a significant mentor in their lives, and they'll take cues from you. What are you modeling for them, both in what you say and what you do? You must have an awareness of yourself, because you're constantly communicating, whether it's verbally, non-verbally, directly, or indirectly. Show you care about your job and your students, and that you're a trustworthy and safe adult, and that you're competent in your ability as an educator and role model, and that you respect your students and your colleagues. Now, much of your job will take place in public settings where everything you say and do will be observed by the children and adults around you. Even if you find yourself working in private settings, you must always act as if you were being observed. Now, finally, there are limits to the tasks that you can ethically undertake. As I mentioned earlier, paraprofessionals may work as part of a team and may contribute to discussions about students' IEP goals and their objectives. However, the final decisions are not made by the paraprofessional. Those decisions are made by the trained professionals on the IEP team in collaboration with the student's family. Now, in the next segment, you're going to use another learning object to review in more detail the most important ethical principles that will guide your work as a paraprofessional. Welcome back. Now in this segment, we're going to get some first-hand information about what it means to be an ABA paraprofessional. To do that, I've invited a couple of folks to talk with us, both of whom have a lot of experience working directly with children with autism as ABA professionals. Let me introduce you. On your left is Anna. On your right is Caitlin. Anna, tell me about the number of years you've been working or have worked as a paraprofessional.
About 10 years as a paraprofessional.
Okay.
Part of it ABA paraprofessional and part a little before that.
Okay. Was this in a private agency or was it in a school setting?
I've worked for a collaborative and also in the public school setting.
Okay, very good. How about you, Caitlin?
I have about 5 years of experience. I've worked for a private school, and I've also worked doing a little bit of consultant work in different settings and for public school.
Okay, well, great. Thanks so much for coming. It's good to have you both, and I want to ask you a couple of questions so we can get a feel for what being an ABA paraprofessional is all about. When you first started working as a paraprofessional, what were some of your expectations about your job when you first went in? We'll start with you, Anna.
I don't think I had a whole lot of expectations when I first went in. I didn't know a whole lot about autism and how it affects people, and so I think going in I really didn't know what to expect, but you learn pretty quickly.
How about you, Caitlin?
Yeah, I have to say the same goes for me, Anna. I really didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what to expect, but I very quickly became to really enjoy my work. So.
Okay, very good. Had you heard anything about ABA before you got into this job?
Very little. Yeah, very little. I certainly had no direct experience with it.
No, I hadn't heard it at all. Didn't even know what the letter stood for at the time.
Okay. Now, so far in this training course, we've talked a lot about how effective ABA is. And I'm wondering if you could tell me about some of the more dramatic changes that you've seen working directly with kids with autism using ABA. Caitlin?
Sure. I mean, I think that some of the most dramatic changes that I've seen have been in the area of independence. It's really interesting to work with a student for a long time and see them acquire a skill, and sort of start to directly teach them using discrete trial training or some of the things that, everyone has seen. And then to see them really own that skill and be able to apply it independently is just a wonderful change.
Seen similar kinds of things?
Yeah, and I was also going to say in communication. Like, I've worked with a lot of young children, so seeing them come in and not be able to communicate at all and learning how to, tell you what they want, what they need, it's just amazing to see.
How about some other skills?
Oh, just even their basic skills, dressing and using the bathroom, and, it's just amazing to watch the progress.
Okay. So what kind of impact has this had on the lives of these children?
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, again, the independence piece I really think is huge. I've also worked with students who are a lot younger, preschool, kindergarten age, and now I work with high schoolers. And it's just really interesting to see the different kinds of skills that they're working on and to really know, those foundational skills that are built when they are younger that they now use so fluently. It's just wonderful.
So when people say that there's a real impact of ABA-based treatments and so on, you've seen it up close.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. This can be challenging, I'm sure. It's not just all easy going. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced over the years working as an ABA paraprofessional?
I think one of the things I've found challenging, just in a general sense, is if you're having a bad day, if things just aren't going well for you in general, it's like you got to leave it at the door, and that can be challenging sometimes, but the kids know if you're not on. They know if you're not 100% there. They do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, another challenge that I find is that students will do the same thing but for a different reason. So you might have a student who throws a pencil because he's confused about his work and doesn't know how to do it, and another student who throws a pencil because he just wants a little attention, you're not talking to him. So another challenge that I find is, you work with students and their programming can be so individualized, and you really have to know it when you're working with several different students.
And one of the nice things about ABA and ABA-based treatments is that there are ways that we can actually ferret out the particular reasons for somebody engaging in one behavior might be different for one student and different from another.
And it's also written up in a program, so you're able to refer to it. Everything's always spelled out for you.
Do you find that helpful? That
Oh yeah, absolutely.
plans are written out and ready for you to go do?
Yeah, there's not a lot of I have to think on my feet all the time because most everything is written out for you. The student does this is what you're going to do. So.
Yeah. And even if you do see some sort of behavior that's new, there are very structured ways to determine why that's happening or what to do in the future, which I think is wonderful.
Okay. In a more general way, I'm assuming that you liked your jobs.
Very much. Very much.
Well, what are a couple of things that you really found, I guess, rewarding as a paraprofessional?
I think watching the growth of students, both as individuals and in terms of their academic programming, and really talking to families and seeing how the changes that occur at home can really carry over, the changes that happen at school carry over to home, which is wonderful. It's nice to know that the changes and the things that we're working on really do make a more general, more broad difference in the lives of these students.
Okay. Anna, how about you?
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I know that some of the families that I've worked with have talked about not being able to go out in the community and to start working on those skills at school and be able to help them to be able to access their community is huge.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, so would you say ABA can do a lot for helping kids with autism?
Yeah, absolutely. Socially too. The social programs that we work on is a big piece. It's nice, you see some students that come in and they aren't making eye contact or they aren't communicating very effectively or efficiently, and it's nice to see them sort of develop social bonds and make friends. And again, for that to be able to translate over to home and to train that and for them to have play dates, it's just wonderful. It's very meaningful, the work that we do.
Yeah.
And it must have been really, feel really good to be a part of that,
It does.
along with the rest of your team and so on.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. What's the best advice that you could give for somebody who's just starting out as a paraprofessional, working with ABA-based treatments and working with kids with autism? What advice would you give them?
I would say don't be too hard on yourself.
Good.
I think sometimes it's very hard for us to learn how to implement these programs, and it doesn't always go perfectly, and that's okay. And I think not being afraid to ask for help. I know when I first started, I thought, well, if I have to call somebody over to help me, then I'm not doing this correctly. But no, you need to ask for help.
Yeah, and just sort of going along with that, just asking questions in general. I think that a lot of the programming that's developed, especially for some students who are a little bit younger, are very, very individualized. They're very structured. They focus on very specific skills, and I think it's important to know why you're teaching that skill to sort of get a sense of what's the bigger picture, like long term, what are we working towards, why is this important? Because a lot of times, if a student does have a bad day or if you have a bad day, it's important to know what the bigger goal is. I think that helps everybody out.
That was really, really helpful. I appreciate it. And thanks so much for coming in, both of you.
Sure,
Absolutely.
Now, as it turns out, both Anna and Caitlin helped out a lot with putting this course together, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of them in the coming units. So what have we learned about your role as a paraprofessional? Well, we've learned that you are an important part of the team of service providers to children with autism. While a behavior specialist is responsible for designing behavioral teaching plans, you as an ABA paraprofessional will likely work one-on-one with a child to implement those plans. Now again, you'll have plenty of help from the behavior specialist on how to carry out the plan, and he or she won't let you start working with the child until you first demonstrate a high degree of proficiency with the procedures. Now, you'll also be collecting data during those teaching sessions and then summarizing those data to present to the behavior specialist. Part of your role as a paraprofessional may also involve other duties like helping transition the students, work with lunch routines for the children, and helping keep the work area organized and cleaned. And of course, no matter what you happen to be doing, you must do so as an ethical professional. You are the role model for the children, and you cannot let your guard down for 1 second. Now, as you can see, being a paraprofessional can be a lot of work, and it carries with it some serious responsibilities. And like any other job, it can be stressful. But let me tell you, from my own experience in the field and from what you heard Anna and Caitlin say, the difference that you'll make in the lives of the children you work with will help make this the most fulfilling and rewarding job that you may ever have.